for me, whoever you edify and lift up, people will do what that person is doing. So, for example, in a sales company for us, I'll always say, you give me the number one person of any company, I'll tell you the future of the company in the next 5 to 10 years, based on who the number one is, not who number two is, who the number one is.
You mean the CEO?
face. No, not CEO. The sales company, you got 1,000 sales players, sales.
Sapala, you mean?
So sales leaders, sales people, yeah. But whoever the number one is, anytime I chose a number one that was more about them than the team, the company collapsed. Every time. But if you chose the right number one, the company exploded. Like Sapalas, they took the company a whole different level. We've had great number ones, Gaetan, Sapalas, Vart. We've had a lot of different number ones, right? And they're all great number ones because people want to be like, well, okay, can I get that kind of recognition? Yes, like we're about to go to Vegas tomorrow, right? We're gonna have 12,000 people. I'm on the phone last night with Mario Lopez because he's hosting the award ceremony. Nicky Jam, Sebastian Maniscalco, Mike Tyson.
Sick.
It's gonna be pretty intense even next week in Vegas for a whole week at MGM Grand. But whoever your number one is, people are gonna duplicate. So now, you go back 50 years ago in America. Who was the hero in America 50 years ago?
JFK.
That's
okay.
fair.
Who else? Yeah, I'm with that. But who else?
John Wayne.
Go 50 years ago. It's
Astronauts?
2071.
The astronauts?
1971.
Oh,
who's a hero?
after that?
1971.
That was
Jimi
Nixon.
Hendrix just died. Nah, Nixon's not.
1971.
No.
Who was the richest man in America in 1971? Who was it? Who was it? Pull it up and see who was it.
Was Lee Iacocca there yet?
I don't know. 1971 is probably going to be
It has to be Ford. It has to be somebody from
Ford. Those guys.
Yeah.
Richest man in the world in 1971.
This is when Sinatra was the man.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Elvis was
so
Sinatra,
think about that.
Elvis was
Sinatra,
fat
Howard
Elvis.
Hughes. Howard Hughes was one of them. Sam Walton. Okay.
Oh, yeah, Howard
Walton
Hughes.
was getting started.
Daniel Ludwig. It's an interesting story. Okay, so keep going. Frank Sinatra. Everybody wants to be like Frank.
Elvis. Yeah.
Okay,
Hell yeah.
Elvis. You want to be like Elvis. Great.
yeah.
Who else did you want to be
Skinny
like?
Elvis.
Skinny. That's Clint Eastwood really getting into his days.
John Wayne.
Well, 71, the counterculture was really big too. You were starting to get. I mean, it was really.
By the way, look
really
at that. There's Howard
counterculture.
Hughes. So you look at Howard Hughes is. J. Paul Getty was prior to that. Okay.
Okay, I'm thinking
You got
one of the
Sam
greatest.
Walton.
one of the
Walt
greatest-
Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Perfect.
sports-wise.
Kareem.
One of the greatest independent
Hank
films
Aaron.
ever, called Easy Rider by Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda and Jack Nicholson, 1971.
Perfect. Jack Nicholson was the face of Hollywood at that. Was he one of the guys?
Peter Fonda probably.
Okay,
was a
so
big-
71. Fair. So this
The
the point.
Beatles were huge.
The Beatles were huge in 71. Okay,
Stones.
so if you're 14 to 18 years old and you're in high school, like, oh my gosh, bro, I'd love to be like, in baseball it was who? 71 to be, basketball was Kareem. 71
71's gotta
baseball would be
the
Aaron.
The end of
Hank
Mantle,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron, let's just say you're looking up to Mickey Mantle. You're looking up to Aaron, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Mickey Mantle. You kidding
So,
me?
so these are the heroes we looked up to, right, at that time. So Kid is competing to be who? That person, okay? Kid is trying to be like that person. Who's the hero today in America?
LeBron James.
Who else?
Well, that's one of them.
Well,
Steph
give
Curry,
me
I
some of
would
the
say,
names. Heroes.
too. Heroes.
Heroes. Who's a
Some would say
Dwayne
Trump. Some
The
would say
Rock
Obama.
Johnson.
Okay,
Some
fine.
would say The
Dwayne The
Rock.
Rock
Go,
for
go
sure.
give the names. So let's just go through them.
If
Obama,
you're
you said
talking
LeBron.
actors, you're talking Leo, you're talking
You
Brad
think
Pitt.
Leo's a hero? You think people look at Leo like they want to be like? Is it?
Brad Pitt. People want Brad Pitt.
If you're talking about the 14 to 18 age range, you got to talk about YouTube.
I was just about to say Jake
Okay,
Paul.
Logan
Jake
Paul.
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to talk about YouTubers
The Paul
and
brothers.
influencers,
Yeah, Paul brothers.
PewDiePie.
PewDiePie.
Who else?
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
You're
Okay.
talking 14 to 18. Yeah.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. Let me go to a different part here. So in 1971, what does a man's man look like in 1971?
Manly.
Oh,
Gi-
he's
gi-
smoking
give me
a
who it is.
cigarette.
Is it
It's
Clint
John
Eastwood?
Wayne.
Clint Eastwood, man.
Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, somebody like that was a man's man.
gonna
And
pull something out.
you
Yeah.
wanted to be like a man's man in the 70s, right? Okay, what does a man's man look like today? What is a man's man today? Is that even an insult to say man's man? What's a man's man?
I think a man's man looks similar, but I don't know if a man's man is what's being pushed to the mainstream, if that makes sense.
Is a man's man likely to be on the cover of a Time magazine today? Is a man's man likely to be the hero today? Is a man's man likely to be someone we look up to today?
No. They're precisely the opposite. They're presented as like being somehow repressive of other people. Like, if you somehow are working a lot and earning, you can't earn a good living for yourself without somehow oppressing somebody else.
Toxic.
They literally call it toxic masculinity.
So so let's talk about a rich person. In 1971, if you were rich, did people want to know who the lives of rich and famous was?
For
Was
sure.
it like, oh my gosh,
Robin Leach, the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Okay, so it was cool to be rich in the 70s.
Yeah.
What is it today to be rich?
I talk about it all the time. What is the thing I hate most about our culture is the repentant rich.
But what I'm saying to you is, like today, not even the repentant rich. I'm talking the 14 to 18-year-old. Is he looking up saying, dude, I admire these rich people. I want to be like them.
Well, there was a study that came out, a poll. They polled people under 21, their thoughts on capitalism versus socialism. It was like shocking. I think 54% said that capitalism was bad and 44% said capitalism was good. So younger people are not advocates of capitalism.
Yeah, but they both. I bet you most of the people taking that poll cannot define either of those.
And that was
terms
actually
with
the
any
part B to
accuracy.
that, is that they actually asked the follow-up question, like, would you know the difference? And they're like, not really.
No, socialism sounds. I mean, the word sounds nice. Like it rolls off the tongue nicely. It's got the word social in it. Sounds great. You know,
Who doesn't like being social? Social media.
Capital sounds
Social security.
But again, I think this is we've forgotten who the hero is.
Can I show you a picture?
We are edifying the wrong hero, so these kids have the wrong image of who to look up to. Because I don't care who you admire, but I at least want to have somebody I put up there to say, hey, one day, what if one day, this is a man's man. This is an example of one day for us to be alike.
I'm going to show you a picture because I actually agree with you.
It's a great point. It's a great point.
Pull this picture up. This is trending on social media, and it's basically, back in my day, this was Nas. Now your generation has this Nas. Exactly. Yeah. So I see that. It's freaking hilarious. Look, the original Nas versus Lil Nas X.
Listen, I actually, look, I have an interesting thought
You actually
about
have
this.
that outfit.
I have an interesting thought about this. See, with Lil Nas X,
like that.
if you look at like the people in the 1700s, 1800s, 18th century, right? These are some of the toughest human beings on planet Earth, and they dressed like that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That was,
like the laws of chivalry had to be invented because people were just murking each other. It was like, say something wrong about me, and we'll have a duel, good sir. And I'd shoot you in the face, but I'd walk around looking like that, but then we'd kill each other over an argument.
Something tells me you would have loved to live
I would have loved it.
I think we need better heroes.
Well,
that's what I think.
How about we just don't need to tear them down? We forget having better heroes, Pat.
Yeah.
It would be great. Can we just start by not tearing down the heroes that we already have?
So
tearing down statues?
So yesterday, this week, I spoke to a guy named Kenny Xu, who wrote the book called The Inconvenient Minority. And he talks about how there's this high school called the Thomas Jefferson High School. It's the #1 high school in America, best grades. Kids come out there. 76% of the school is Asian, okay? Nearly 80% of kids is Asian.
What city is this in?
I don't know. If you look it up, he was talking about Thomas Jefferson High School. And then he talks about how in Harvard, out of all the applicants that submit their applications, they should accept 43% of Harvard should be Asian, but only 21% is because they want to make sure they're inclusive, the whole, making sure we're discriminate against. They don't want too many Asians there because it's way too much. Out of 5.9% in America, Asian, our population is 5.9% Asian. 22% of Harvard students are Asian, okay? So out of only 5.9 to 22% of Harvard. So they're just completely rocking it, right?
Yeah.
And, he's talking about what's going on, why he didn't want to go to Harvard, et cetera, et cetera. And yesterday I talked to Eddie Gallagher. I don't know if you know Eddie Gallagher is. Eddie Gallagher is, he's the guy that was the Navy SEAL. He did 8 tours, 2 bronze medals, and he was seen with the video with one of the ISIS terrorists that they took the picture in the video and it went viral. He went to prison. You know the story. Chief Eddie Gallagher, Navy SEAL. Yes. And then Trump got him. He says, I don't support what he did, but I think a man that put his life out, he's got to get out. And I said, tell me what it's like in the military. The military has something called the Navy, NCIS, okay? It's like the intelligence where they do research
I think there's
on you.
Literally a TV show called NCIS.
Yeah, if you can pull out what NCIS means. And then there's CID. NCIS and CID are the same thing. I said, what role does NCIS play? He says, who runs NCIS? He says, well, it's the officers. And I said, okay, so why don't officers support what you're doing? He says, because, for them, they don't like us. So I went and Googled. I said, let me look up Navy SEAL. Because when you think about a man's man, what do you think about? You think about, if I told you right now he's a Navy SEAL, what would you say? How would you look at him if I told you he's a Navy SEAL?
Strong, masculine, brave, courageous.
You'd look at him in a different way. I'd look at him now. He's not a Navy SEAL. He just goes to the beach a lot. But but if I said Navy SEAL, you immediately judge him. So I looked up how many people are Navy SEALs in America today. 2,500. How many active billionaires do we have in America today? Around the same number. 2,500. Okay.
Wow.
He said NCIS hates anybody that makes it to the highest level, like Navy SEAls. So who writes about billionaires? that they don't like them. You got regulators like an Elizabeth Warren. You got some journalists that go after them.
Activists, yeah.
The CID and regulators, they're the same human beings. He said the most interesting thing to me yesterday because General Milley, I asked him about General Milley. I said, so what happened with General Milley talking about CRT? And here's a general. Like, why is a general going out there defending some of these things being taught? He says, because there's an interesting thing that you don't know about. I said, what's that? He says, in the military, after 04 or 05, to get your promotion, Congress has to sign off on your promotion.
No.
Let me say this one more time. So if you're
The politicians
have to sign off. If you become a colonel or a general, one-star general, you need Congress to sign off on your promotion. Now,
That's interesting.
this is Gallagher is saying this to me on the podcast we did yesterday. He has a book that just came out called, he's got a book coming out. The interview is going to come out here next week. So the point is, the people who are not the man's man are in charge of building up who the man's man is. So up until that changes, we are never going to recognize who the man's man is. We are never going to recognize who the real heroes are. So the problem isn't that. The problem is who's telling the world who the real heroes are.
On a small level, on a much smaller level than that, that's an incredible story. And also, if we can find a crossover between the 2,500 Navy SEALs and the 2,500 billionaires, we have Batman. So if we find one that's bold, we've found him. But the interesting thing about what you're saying is there's actually a guy who listens to the show who is pushing back on that, and that's Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling, whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, Curt Schilling is a very great American baseball pitcher.
The bloody sock.
Bloody sock, incredible competitor.
Tough guy.
Tough dude.
Guy.
But he made some, to our establishment, some questionable tweets while he was working for ESPN. And now he has requested to be taken off the Hall of Fame ballot.
Yeah.
He's almost a lock to make it this year, and he's been requested to be taken off the ballot because he does not want to give the writers the ability to judge his career. You don't get to tell me whether or not I was a Hall of Famer. He'll wait the 7 years until he goes to the Veterans Committee, which is a bunch of old players that select people that haven't gone through the process. And he's like, I would rather wait and then have my peers put me in the Hall of Fame.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.